in Japan. There's a Japan real estate summit that they host, I think, in the spring and the fall. So a couple of our host coordinators attended that event and met the founders of AkiyaMart named Joey and Take. We then brought them into our in-person meetup, and they had shared with us kind of their journey of why they were trying to buy in Japan and everything that they had to go through. And it led them to sharing their experience through the website that they're building called AkiyaMart. And so, it was what drove them was their personal interest, right, and things that they wanted to do themselves, but they realized that they weren't the only ones, and if they could bring value, right, to other people, other foreigners or people who don't reside on Guam, or I'm sorry, in Japan, how can they do the same thing? They put it all together. And so they were featured on our platform last year, and so we wanted to bring them again this year. And turns out they're doing so well that they now have a new partner, Erik. And what's great about what Erik has to offer is he does have some military affiliation, because a lot of us here in this call have that connection. But he too is going through this journey, and he has a construction background. And so I think you guys are really definitely take out your notes, and whatever other questions you have, again, please put that in the chat. And so without further ado, I'm going to turn the floor over to Erik. So Erik, what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then you could take it over.
Okay, cool. So I'm Erik. I basically grew up in Japan, and I always wanted to buy a house, and I thought it was pretty much impossible. I grew up in Misawa Air Base for the majority of my life, and I moved to Minnesota, opened up a construction company, and I do construction here. And now I'm in the process of trying to get my business manager visa and start a business in Japan, along with owning property, offering like midterm rentals and things like that. So I have a lot of slides prepared today to kind of go over the construction side of things. And when we're all done, I'm gonna cruise through the construction slides, but then if we need to use them later to explain things, I have them. So as you guys probably already know, Misawa Air Base, where I grew up, is up in the north. And if you're near a base or by tourist areas, it ends up being kind of difficult to learn Japanese because you don't have to, especially being around the base. So we picked a place on the Sea of Japan side to purchase and live. So it'd like force my wife and I to learn Japanese quicker, assimilate, learn cultural norms, and just overall be better guests to Japan. They have a lot of people in the base area, and I'm not allowed to go back on anyways. So it didn't make sense to live near a base for me. But I think a lot of you guys have the opportunity to work with bases, purchase real estate, and possibly rent to military affiliates near the base. So it's a really huge opportunity, especially since they get their COLA or stipend for their housing rent. So that's my property, my first property that I bought. I'll go back here real quick. It's in Niigata Prefecture. So it is subtropical, it's hot, but we still get plenty of snow. Beauty there is we have palm trees and snow. I think it's a really great part of Japan. I did purchase this property all through AkiyaMart, Joey and Take, remotely from the US, and having never been to that prefecture while I lived in Japan. So I'm kind of the guinea pig for them, that it was proof that we can buy this property from the United States in English remotely. So a bunch of these slides are going to be construction. So when I did this, because of my background, I didn't need to, or didn't feel inclined to buy a building inspection. They can run about 1,000 to 1,500 for a building inspection on a property. And being that the property was $26,000, I knew I was already going to renovate a number of things. So I didn't spend my money there. But as you can see, I reframed this whole tatami room and built it for a sunken yakiniku table. So you could have grill outs. It's right off, these doors right here are right off from the kitchen. So it makes for like a traditional Japanese dining room off the kitchen. That being said, all of the wood and lumber to finish that entire room was $600 US. So still money ahead versus not buying the building inspection. Um, a lot of these homes, probably, gosh, if I had to make up a percentage, I'd probably say 90% are not insulated, especially if you don't get into the very expensive um, market and you're looking at below $100,000 US. They're going to come, bare frame, and that's how they built them for the longest time. And you'll notice, like on my home, I have 13 sliding patio doors, and a lot of that is so they can open it up in the summertime and it's cooler. And it's a much more different than living on base housing, for sure. And so there's struggles there as far as like using their kerosene heaters and their small mini split air conditioners. But um, so we upgraded the insulation, took out the sheetrock, and then everything in Japan seems to be covered in wallpaper. Very little rooms get painted walls, right? Like paint is just not super common, unless you go to CE on the base and you get brown or white. Um, but for the most part, wallpaper is, and they have binders and binders of wallpaper, so you can find, all sorts of stuff. The cool thing is they have specific tradesmen in Japan, wallpaper maestros is what they call them. Um, their whole job is to just do wallpaper, just kind of like we have sheetrock and mud people in the US. Um, skip the mud phase. The wallpaper guy will do like one thin layer of mud just to cover like the seam in the sheetrock, and then they will do traditional bat insulation or blow in. So, some of the other fun things you can do during the renovation, I did black tatami mats, and they have a lot of different colors that you can order from. But usually, when you see your property, when you're looking at all the real estate, you see your traditional tan green tatami mats. If you're not going to be there a lot of the time out of the year, or you're worried about moisture or maintenance, a lot of the colored ones that are black, blue, red, whatnot, are made out of polypropylene, so you don't have to worry about mold and mildew if you're not there to air out the home as much as you'd like. Um, this is a bathroom reno that we did. The other cool thing is we worked with local contractors for a number of different renovations. So for the bathroom, I worked with the equivalent of a Home Depot and just went in and basically told them what I wanted, picked all the different colors out of a book, and signed a contract. I did use a Honko, like a name stamp for the contract for a lot of this work. However, when buying the real estate, you do not need a Honko for any of that. And even when I used my Honko for this process, it was not, how do I put it? It was my name, but it's not official. It's not registered to the city. I'm not a resident. I am still on a tourist visa. So all of this can be done on a tourist visa. I'm living proof. I own 2 cars now, that we also managed to successfully get via a tourist visa. So if you're like, hey, I want to do all this, but what step is next? I would say the number one thing is get the property, which you can do through tourist visa. And then after that, you kind of stumble around and figure out, okay, is it going to be easier to hire some of these renovations out, or is it going to be easier to do them myself and get a little K truck and running back and forth to the lumberyard or whatever? Um, if you guys aren't already familiar with their really large super center lumber yards, they have, I feel like, almost everything. I know mine locally even sells owls, so you can get everything there. Um, so it makes it a lot easier to figure out. And a lot of times, as you guys know, Japanese people are very, very, very extremely helpful when you approach them, um, with a little bit of Japanese and a lot of gratitude for them helping you. I think that they are very welcoming to helping foreigners. And I'm a big advocate for rural areas in Japan. Japan wants foreigners in rural areas or people in rural areas, right? And the people that I find in the rural areas, I'm biased, but I feel like they're more helpful because they're intrigued to ask you questions. So I'm building this Horigotatsu yakiniku room, and they want to know why I'm in Japan or what I'm doing or what's my background. And so because they have those questions, and they will about you as well, they lend themselves more to helping you because it's almost like an exchange. Like they help you, but they get their questions answered. So it can be a really fun process. Um, this is that yakiniku room again. So when we did the walkthrough, when we were before we purchased, the agent that I was working with, Yoshi-san, through AkiyaMart, they go out and do the remote viewings of the properties. That's all part of the package, right? And or you can view them with them yourself. However, I kind of trust the process and I trust my realtor through the process. And he told me this room, when he was walking in it, had soft tatami mats. So they squished a little bit when you walk through them. And it's pretty indicative of, bad framing or rotted framing, or in this case, there was old termite damage. And you can kind of see a little bit of those cracks through there. Or the termites basically just ate away that wood. And then this idori, this is a old hearth that was underneath the floor. Had no idea it existed. So that was also another obstacle. If I'm going to reframe this room, I want that out of my way. Thankfully, the guy that installed my air conditioner, when I first moved in, I had an air conditioner installed, like a small split mini. Um, and I asked him, "Hey, what do you do for fun?" And he's like, "Oh, I DIY renovations." I was like, "Cool. I'm gonna want your number." And then it just so happened I was like, "Hey, what kind of DIY stuff do you do?" And you saw him in the previous picture doing insulation and wallpaper because he does like light stuff. And I asked him, "Hey, do you want to demo this Idori when I'm redoing this room?" And he said, "Sure, no problem. I'll go get the jackhammer." And he rented a jackhammer or borrowed it from a friend. And I think he charged me like $40 to demo that whole thing and bag it up in sandbags and remove it. So I was like, "Hey, here's $100 because you saved me like a huge amount of time and effort." And I'm hoping to make a long lasting relationship with him. It's like, hey, Erik doesn't pay a small amount and I'll come back for more work. And since then, that's why I've had him do a lot of the insulation work and stuff. And as you can see, I've had a lot of contractors. We had to have pretty major meetings on this room because we're putting a gas line, we're having electrical for the yakiniku, and then you can see the vent on the outside. So we don't have to have a range over top of the cooking unit inside. And this is all hidden. And they've done all of this while I've been in the US. And I set it up while I was there. But then when I left, they set the dates and then they update me with pictures along the way. So just, I guess you could say, further proof that a lot of this renovation can be even done when you're not there. But you have to start with getting the property. And you won't have, if you buy the property outright, you won't feel this overwhelming pressure to do these renovations to get it rented, hopefully, and you can take it at your pace, right? That's a big thing to realize, that a lot of things move slower in Japan, buying the property to getting renovations done, just paperwork in general. So, um, yeah, there's the table going in. Oh, and you can, I'm having some of these doors redone as well. So these are shoji doors, and the ones that have the glass for snow viewing are Yukimi shoji. So they're kind of a unique part of the area where they're called snow viewing doors. So you can raise part of the screen up and see out. So, and so I had to work with like a local craftsman to rebuild the doors. And after earthquakes, sometimes those doors will be, they won't roll as smooth and as nice. So when they come in and fix the doors, they'll reset the tracks as well so that they're nice and they feel like they're new sliding doors, basically. That's probably just an OCD thing on me that I just don't enjoy poorly sliding doors. Let's see, back to the regular part of the presentation outside of renovation. I discussed like what makes it such a good thing to invest in property as of right now. there being a lack of population growth in Japan and them needing some economic boost in their rural areas to bring jobs. So there are an estimated 9 million empty homes in Japan. AkiyaMart on our site that we've created so that people can search in English and with overlays. A big thing to that is we have about at any given time about a 500,000 listings, I think. Um, and there's so many more listings that you don't see. They're either listed on Akiya banks or smaller, more local real estate listing sites. So we want to a big thing for me to you guys is you do not have to use AkiyaMart. We are here as an easy button, if you will, because we have a fee to partner you up with an agent and walk you through the entire process remotely and in English. But it's not absolutely necessary. It's just that it makes it a little bit easier. If you're looking for a property that you're going to relocate in, a lot of times the Akiya banks in Japan are really cheap and good places to get started. However, they don't list a lot of their properties online, or they can be difficult to find online. So you have to be on the ground. The other catch with those properties is they want you to be a semi-permanent or permanent resident. They want that to be your primary residency. So if you're looking to rent those properties, a lot of times they're not excited about it, and they're using those properties to entice people to move to their city and revitalize that area. Whereas the properties that you're going to find on AkiyaMart are publicly listed properties. So those properties are 90 to 100% more likely and open to selling people that want to make it a investment property, or truly, one way to put it is they just don't care who buys it. Um, Whereas some properties you can be met with a little bit of resistance, like, oh, I only want to sell to another Japanese person. And I don't think it comes from them not liking foreigners. It really just comes from they just want their town to continue to survive. So um, another thing is the properties are really cheap in some cases, and a lot of that has to do with the area where you buy. I'm in a very tiny town, and houses on two of my three sides are empty. So say about 50% of the homes in the village feel about empty. And I've even tried to buy some of the other empty homes. Um, and we're just not able to reach the owners. Like they either don't exist or don't answer mail or whatever the case is. Um, it's really hard to buy the empty home when there's nobody to contact. So um, this is us, our place. We've helped a lot of other people. I think this says 50 plus, but I think we're over 100 now of successful purchases with clients. So I'm going to run you through real quick. This is the part where I go over this with for every webinar meeting, every meeting that I have, and it's really just kind of like numbers and process. So it's kind of mundane to me. So I just make sure you understand it. And then if you have more questions about it, I'm happy to answer. But it's pretty much just processes. Whereas we start out with a consultation like this, where we're just meeting you and figuring out what your goals are. And then when you're ready to move to the next steps, you're like, hey, everything sounded good. I want to meet with an agent and figure out if this is still right for me. That's when we set up a one-on-one meeting between you and one of our bilingual real estate agents. We do cover all of Japan, from Okinawa to Hokkaido. Um, in Okinawa, however, there's the transportation side of things of our agent who is on the southern side of the mainland Japan. They still have to get to Okinawa if they're going to do virtual viewings. However, what they try to do in step 4 is do a lot of that red tape, finding out if there's red flags or issues with the property before they even go see it or set up a viewing. Request more pictures of the property or network with some of the local agents to get more properties for you to see that aren't on AkiyaMart, because that's just part of when they understand the area where you're trying to buy in. They really want to hone in on that. And that's what a big thing for us is to tell you, like, hey, let's isolate an area where you want the property. Pick a climate, pick a city or something like that, and then you can fully explore and feel a lot more comfortable in your purchase. Stage three, I kind of skipped over there. It's only after you feel comfortable working with that agent. We do have a contract for our services and a $5,000 fee. After that, though, we do send out that property tracker, have you working with that agent, AkiyaMart, Joey, Take, myself. We're along the ride the entire way. So we're in touch with you, and we're also in touch with the agent that you're working with to make sure we're getting you to key delivery. This entire process, 1 through 5, is like buyer sided, you viewing properties, checking them out, and then making an offer, is typically about 2 to 4 week stage, and it goes really fast. As long as you can find a property you love. This 5 to 7 is seller sided. You're waiting for a lot of Japanese bureaucracy paperwork. So it slows down dramatically. And we typically see that to be 1 to 2 months. And we tell people, hey, there's paperwork going on in the background that you don't see. So be patient, but it's happening. I tell people to pretend that there's a Japanese calligraphy artist writing out your entire deed to the house. And that's why it takes so long. This entire process can be done remote. That stage 4 where there's property viewings, a lot of people do like to maybe hop on a medevac flight and go check out some properties real quick with an agent, and then go back to the other base that they came from. The offer submission, when you submit your offer, you can do it upon contingent on a building inspection. And as I mentioned before, they're about 1,000 to 1,500. And then on the side of that, you do not have to do it. But if you do get a successful offer, you're looking at about a 10% deposit on the property purchase. And we do err on the side of caution and say a higher deposit. And the reason being is if the seller decides to back out for any reason, they owe you twice your deposit. So it's kind of a nice thing knowing that your contract's pretty locked in and good to go. And this is a fee schedule. I think my time might be running out, so I'll try and make it quick. But in general, the insurance column here, you'll see that is for 5 years of property insurance. I'll use my property for the best example. I pay $500 a year, but I pay for a 5-year chunk up front. So it's $2,500. That covers my $26,000 property for a $200,000 rebuild in the case of earthquake, fire, or partial flood. So it's much better than the US. It's very thorough, and it is pretty inexpensive. And if you really need to get the buying price down, like the closing cost down, you can opt for a 1-year insurance package. It's just that in Japan, they will typically quote you a 5-year block. Inside the closing column is going to be your property taxes, your judicial, like your closing title fees, your recording of your deed, and your stamp duty fees, which is just fancy for another tax, right? My property taxes, for a good example, are $200 a year on my $26,000 property. So they are about 1.7% on your property value. Homes in Japan do depreciate. If they're built out of wood, they depreciate on a 22-year schedule. So if it's older than 22 years, your property has no value, and your land is what has all the value in what you're buying. And in the transaction process, they will gift you the home, and they will record the land as the purchase. So that $200, again, minimal property taxes. And if you do buy something newer, the nice thing is it's going to go down over time, not up. Thank you, Japan. That's pretty nice of you. As far as commission table, this is mandated in Japan. If it's under 8 million yen, they charge a minimum of 300,000 yen. And above that, it switches to a 3.3% commission. And so then if you are able to, because you are in Japan and able to navigate it without AkiyaMart, you can eliminate that fee and you can bring down your insurance cost. These columns 2 and 3 are going to stick. They're going to be pretty conservative, good estimates to what you're going to expect. And then the last piece is the real estate acquisition tax at the bottom. That is a tax that will come about 3 to 6 months after you've closed on the property. The government has recorded all the paperwork, and then they send you a random bill. And it is about 4% again of the assessed value. And it's just another fancy term for sales tax. But it is only one time. And so in my case, it was 500 US dollars. Um, the only other thing you will need in Japan is somebody to receive that tax bill and handle your utility bills if you're not there. We do partner with John here over at Mailmates. They're a digitized mail service and they can act as a tax representative. I would say the majority of our clients work with Mailmates, and the ones that work with Rio over on the left, he is one of our agents, but he also helps people get Airbnb licensing for the property. And he is one of our bilingual agents. He's a Harvard grad, but he's Japanese. So he's very well versed in American culture, Japanese and American real estate. And then also navigating that Airbnb licensing for you guys. If that is something that you guys want to pursue, we tend to push people over to him as he reaches capacity because he's in pretty high demand. We just kind of tell people, hey, wait a quarter, or keep surfing properties, hone in on your location and property if that's where you're still at. Myself, me in the middle, myself and Jay, my buddy Jay, we are working on helping people with vehicle purchase under tourist visa, as you can't have a Y plate if you're out of the military anymore. So it's a little bit more difficult to navigate paperwork wise. So we help with that, especially since our background is love of cars and construction. So, and then we can also help with digitized mail services as well, just like Mailmates. But I think that is about it. I cap it off with like who should buy or who shouldn't. And I tell people you should lead with an investment in lifestyle, like you love for Japan and you want to spend a little bit of time there. And then there's an investment aspect. But if you buy a house and it gives you minimal to no return, we want you to still be happy with that purchase and the availability of like a second home, a cabin, or a primary home that you truly love. And then if you end up making money as a byproduct for the love of the area and you become an expert tour guide, if you will, of that area that anybody stays, then you're winning twice. So the shouldn't buy, we say, hey, if it's only return on investment, it's dangerous. We don't want people to feel the pressure of after they buy, they have to make money. It's an unnecessary frustration and stress in your life. And you guys already have probably plenty. So I do want to say we have a promo as well. So if you haven't used our website, AkiyaMart.com, we have it for all military members or military affiliates, everybody on this meeting.
If you want the kind of consultation with Erik, that's what he was referring to is, the QR code, you could register for that. Because how much do you guys normally charge for that? I think
It's
at one
normally
point.
$55
Okay.
for a half hour, but
Mhm.
don't worry. If you guys book it, we usually run an hour to 90 minutes sometimes if we get to chatting. And as long as I have the time, I'll just continue to talk and share all the information. Wealth of knowledge, and I just want to help other people that have the similar dream from being on military bases. So
Yeah, absolutely. Appreciate you doing that. All right, so we'll get right into questions here. And so before I do that, again, just contact information, right? I know we have the QR code there, but it's also here on the slide for you guys to reference. So I'm just going to go into the chat and I'm going to start throwing out the questions that everyone has been asking. And so, Erik, well, the first question is actually my question was you had mentioned the Hanko, which is the stamp.
yeah.
Could you share with this audience like what the significance of that stamp is and if there is a process to get one if someone wanted it?
Yeah. So the Honko that I got, I went to Don Quixote and a
Oh,
nice old lady helped me use the machine and get my Honko. It's not now after you get a Honko, officially, if you're a Japanese or if you have residency, you register it at like your city or area where you live. However, when I'm doing the contracts for the construction, they don't ask if it's registered or if it's official or anything like that. They really,
mm,
it's almost a formality. They, it's your signature stamp, and they really
mhm.
just, they're like, hey, we have a circle here. And so it just makes life easier if you have a Honko rather than signing it with pen. But a lot of them will let you sign in that circle with a pen. But
Mhm.
I was kind of like, oh, it's an excuse for me to have a Honko and have fun with it. So it was like maybe 3,000 yen. So
Yeah, it's just another way to immerse yourself right in the culture. What does a Honko run for? How much does it normally cost?
yeah, I want to say that it was anywhere between like 1,000 and 10,000 yen, depending on of like what material you get it made and how big and or how fancy it is. But they have a vending machine in Don Quixote where you can like type in the kanji for your name, and
Okay.
then it'll literally carve it and then dish it out, and then you can buy a holding case with an ink pad for it as well. So
Yeah, definitely got to offer you the accessories, right? So, okay, so
yeah,
basically, less than $100 is what it'll set you back.
yeah. Oh, easy.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for sharing. All right, so next question I have here is from Dane. He asks, how long should we realistically expect the buying process to take?
Mm. Yeah, we say to be um, ready to close in 2 months, if if everything goes really well, and be patient enough for it to take 4 months. Um, I can tell you my first property I think was right around that 3 month time frame. That's probably a typical transaction. My second property was probably in the 9 to 10 months time frame because I bought a property right down the street from myself for my sister, and so I could rent it out or try renting it out, but I can say it's for my sister. Um, it took so much longer because it was registered as agricultural land, and as foreigners, we're not allowed to own agricultural land. So
Mm,
they had to re-register it. The seller had to go through a lot of paperwork on their end to get it to be residential land. And there is a risk because if it wasn't very residential, then the committee might say, no, we're keeping this as ag land and you're not allowed to purchase. However, it was a house with very little garden or anything. So I knew that it would be successful. It would just be a lot of waiting. And since I already had my first property, I was plenty fine waiting. Also, that one was about 16,000 and it gave me about six more parking spots for cars. So was I'm very patient when it comes to just getting a second place. However, if it was my first place, I would probably say, keep looking and find something else. I wouldn't want to wait 10 months for my first property.
yeah. Dean, did you have any follow-on questions to that one? No? Okay. Does anyone have any oh actually I'll just keep going on the chat here. So if you have any follow-up questions to that, again, feel free to use the chat to put it in and I'll call it in the order. So the next question is also from Dane. His question is, what are the criteria for a local agent to work with a AkiyaMart?
Oh, that's a good question. Um, English speaking, and Japanese speaking. I think that because we are adding agents throughout Japan. I think we just added two in the last couple weeks. We have two more. And so yeah, it is a Joey Take situation, but I know that they are very interested in adding because we are, I would say we're clipping right at capacity. Usually we have like a couple spots open up, and I'm like, all right, I have two people interested. So I think they're always looking at expanding that real estate agents. We are not a brokerage, so we can't like employ you as an agent. All of our agents do work under a taken or their own brokerage license. But if you're interested and you don't have your real estate license, I think um, there are some of our other agents that would probably help you get situated with their brokerage, so you'd be able to work under that brokerage. Hopefully that helps. But I think the biggest thing is probably language and, reading, writing skills.
Okay.
Awesome.
Yeah, that was very helpful. I have two agents here that are fit that criteria, so I'll talk to them and see if they're interested.
Yeah, very cool.
Awesome. All right. Next question is coming from Gary Claire. He asks, are there included in AkiyaMart inspectors to see if the homes are sound and how are the conditions?
Yeah. So the agents that you work with through AkiyaMart can hire any type of inspection you'd like, from a pest inspection to a soil grade test to a structural engineer inspection. And the typical building inspection, just a general overview, is very thorough. I think they usually come back with about 60 or so, 60 to 100 pages that are photographs, what the issue is, and typically what the solution is. So they are very in depth, as the Japanese are. And they will detail out like little things like a crack in the wall. So it, that being said, early on in AkiyaMart's days, we did have a client that got a building inspection. They checked off no termites, and after they moved in, they found termites. Even though the building inspection checked off that it wasn't there, and then they had a very thorough inspection. So Joey and Take jumped in, got the building inspection refunded, and then facilitated getting a pest eradication company in there to resolve that issue and everything else. And it's just a really good example of how AkiyaMart can kind of jump in and facilitate a little extra, rather than if you were just dealing with the agent. If you're just dealing with an agent, they're going to be like, hey, liability's on you. Good luck. Whereas we kind of can help hold certain people accountable.
Yeah, thank you. So I think following on with that is including the base cost, how much is the average total cost of properties, including all the renovations required?
Renovations will range. So outside of renovations, just like the fees in general. So if you're looking at, your typical $10,000, $20,000 property, um, I typically say to budget about 13,000 US dollars for all if you're using AkiyaMart's services, and that is with all your insurance and AkiyaMart fee and everything. So 13K on top of everything. Um, Renovations, I would say, if you're like, mm, my $26,000 property is a good example. I didn't have to renovate anything, right? So you saw that room that I was changing the framing and I had some termite damage. Well, it was still workable. I could still walk through there. I could still sit in that room and air condition, and everything was still, it was nicer than my hotel room. Let me put it like that when I first got to that house. Um, but being with my background in construction and wanting to learn a lot of these things, I've done a lot of those renovations that you see to make my life more comfortable, or for me to network and learn things. So that way in the future, I'm more connected and more of a resource. However, if I was on a tighter budget, I probably would have spent maybe 10,000 total on getting it comfortable. And then maybe another 5,000 on furniture. So, yeah. And yeah, a lot of that'll my house there's 3,000 square feet. So a lot of that too is like, how big is the property that you're getting? If you're looking in Osaka, in a smaller square footprint, um, you're gonna keep your costs way down. I will say my bathroom renovation that you saw, just the shower room, was about 1.5 million yen. So right around 10,000 US dollars for that full bathroom reno. Still way better than the US. And I did go pretty high end as far as like the wall panels and stuff like that. They look fancy and whatnot. And I think I got another quote, if I wanted to keep the price down, right around 1 million yen. So
What about central heating? Does that include the central heating? Like they say you wanted to put
mm.
central heating.
You won't find it. Like they just don't have it unless you get up to Hokkaido. And then they have like a boiler type system in some of those homes. Generally, everything's all space heaters, either kerosene or propane, or city gas, as they call it, natural gas. And they'll have basically a space heater on the wall, and you'll add those to the rooms that you need. The good thing is you can be pretty comfortable on a lower cost, because to add a furnace to a home and have ductwork and everything would be, let's say, 10,000 US. Whereas in Japan, a space heater, say, is a couple $100, and I have to call up the gas station nearby my house, or I go there, I just drive up there and I go, hey, I need you to refill my kerosene tank. And then they come out to my house and they refill my kerosene tank. And even in the winter months, the whole tank lasted me the entire winter. I wasn't there the whole time, but I would say maybe if I had to refill it, it would be one other time. So, and that was like a couple $100 to fill the entire kerosene tank. And then because their way their homes are built, they're not insulated. They really only heat the rooms that they're in. So when you wake up in the morning or you go to sleep at night, you might heat the room that you sleep in, but you're not heating your kitchen, your bathroom, your living room, or anything like that. And then when you get up in the morning, you might turn the heater on in your living room and your kitchen, and then you let the one in the bedroom go off because you're not going to be there anymore. So efficiency is peak. And the way they've build and design situates makes it that way. Hopefully that answers that question.
Yeah. All right, next question is from Nadine. She asks, she says, we don't have a carpenter background. What do you suggest finding local contractors?
Yeah, so my biggest thing was to, when I hired out the first couple jobs, or jobs that I didn't feel comfortable doing, when I hired those out, I networked with the people that came to do the work. So like my air conditioner guy, I went to K's Denki, which is like a appliance store, right? And I purchased one air conditioner. 3 younger Japanese guys showed up to do the install that day, and I made friends with them, and I added them on Instagram. And basically, they're handy people, right? They're installing air conditioners. So, are they interested in side work and making some side money, right? And they are. As most people, younger generation is always trying to do a little bit of hustle to make some more money. And I think you'll find that a lot from if you just hire some things out and then networking. And then outside of that, if you just wanted to truly immerse yourself with your neighborhood, meeting your neighbors is a big part of owning property in Japan, and bringing gifts to them after you purchase your home, introducing yourself. It's very, very traditional. And it's usually just some snacks from America because they love American snacks. And they'll invite you over for tea, and you'll sit on the tatami mats for 4 hours and your legs will hurt. But after that, you'll have them in your phone and you can ask them, hey, I was thinking about getting this done. Do you know somebody? Well, they've lived there for 50 years. So guess what? They probably know somebody, or they know how to kind of talk to somebody else that might know somebody. And a lot of you're basically using your business networking skills on a more personal, localized level. So.
Yeah, I'm so glad you mentioned that, Eric, because again, that's that etiquette, right, that you mentioned, just kind of the unwritten rules and just cultural courtesy. That's not something you would know unless you lived there or know someone, or someone would be kind enough to share that with you. And I think that's really important to highlight because if you buy a property, you move in, if you miss that step,
Yeah.
it's just something you don't want to miss, right?
I'm shy about it too. I'm probably slightly extroverted, and I'm like, oh man, I don't want them to hate me, like, so. But every time I've had an interaction with all my neighbors, it's all very positive and they're super happy. So, and
Yeah.
again, I think a little bit of that is because they're like, thank goodness somebody's buying a house in our village, like it's not gonna disappear. So yeah.
Yeah, very welcoming. Also, so we still have a couple more questions, and I know we need to close out here the Q&A piece in a few minutes. So I have one more question from Gary. He says, do you have any homes that are not Akiya on your listing, such as condos, for example?
Oh yeah, there's a filter where you can click. If you go to filters, you can click from houses over to condos. because there are different fees associated with condos. We just separate them out. So, but yeah, we list condos.
Great question. All right, and then another question from Ada Wilkie. She says, not sure if this has been asked right. Okay. How can I get a non-resident, as a non-resident, get a loan for renovation? Is it recommended to get a business manager visa first, establish yourself as a business, then get a business loan, or are there any other loan resources, you know?
Yeah. Big piece of the money is all these transactions are cash as a foreigner. Without business history in Japan or residency or visa, you can't get a loan in Japan. However, I know that you can explore using a self-directed IRA to invest in purchase property. But if you do use a self-directed IRA, I'm informed that you're not supposed to be the one that works on it. You're supposed to hire everything out because it is now like a asset to your investment portfolio. What was the second part of that? And it was like,
Is it, I think, yeah, just any loan resources that you may be aware of.
yeah. Oh, and then yeah, as far as like the what we recommend as far as like do business manager or like get the property. To get your business manager visa, one of the requirements is that you have property where your business will operate out of. So my property that I purchased, my garage is a separate dwelling. There's like a living space above the garage, and it's detached. So it counts as my business address. So if you're trying to be on the cheap and accomplish that business manager visa and have an address for your business, I would say to try and find properties that have accessory dwellings that you can register your business out of. Otherwise, you can always rent an office and have a simple address that way. But this makes it all in one easier, I think. So
Yeah, no, that's definitely a great point. And I think you answered the question because it's basically a finance question. Ada, if you want, you're welcome to unmute, and if there was additional questions you had for Erik on that, feel free to do that now.
Gary, there's definitely homes in Kobe. Yeah.
How many listings do you say? I think you said it. How many listings
I
do you
think
guys have?
we're at any point we're between 300 and 500,000. I will point out though, sometimes you'll see, not sometimes, a lot of times you'll see duplicate listings. The way we aggregate and scrape the public internet and create our listings, it ends up with duplicates. Now, the good and the bad of that is some of those duplicates are different from each other. So that way we provide the link though to the original Japanese real estate website so you can see the true information, because some of them will come up different prices than the other. And the reason that is that when that property was originally listed, it was that price and they might have fixed it or corrected it. And we still show the old, uncorrected price. But the idea is that between the two listings, that one of them is accurate. So and then we put on there now source one and source two. So you can tell that like, hey, we're aware these came from two different places. And I think we're working on a source three right now. So. And we
Awesome.
also, in the overlay map, it's a really big thing, is we do have an Airbnb map. So you can see an overlay of the different Airbnb laws on how many days you can rent the property based on where it's located in Japan, because that is a very heavily regulated thing in Japan. So.
Yeah, it's really good to know. I'm glad you mentioned that. And so we're out of time for Q&A, but for those of you on the call, I did ask Erik to stay back just a little bit after we do all our closing, so that if you have additional questions, you guys feel free to stay on and continue to ask. But we just want to go ahead and close out the event formally. So if you just give me a few minutes, I do have some asks for those of you who've been able to join us today. So the first thing is appreciate if you give us feedback. It does. As a team, we're all volunteers here and we do this because this is a passion and it's just something we're really interested in. But we also are really interested in continuing to give value. So all the things that you see here, this was all based on feedback from the people who've been able to attend. And so there'll be a brief survey in the link that either Wei or Whitney will put in there. Again, please take a minute or two and just share with us your thoughts on things that we can do to improve. All right, and then we have we actually only have one more event for the year. We do these virtual events every other month, and so the next one will be coming up October 18th. The topic we have for that event, a lot of people ask questions regarding the legal aspect, and I'm here to share with you that I think the guest speaker we have lined up for that, her background is in tax, finance, and legal, and so it's going to be incredible to have her because she's going to talk about when you think about that part of the process, it's important to keep the tax part and the finance part in mind. And so definitely save the date for that.
And can you scoot over so we can see the dates?
Oh gosh, do I need to go to the right, left?
Yeah, there. So I
Oh,
just
yeah.
so we can see the dates. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry, we were experimenting with the different views. So this one's a new one. All right, everyone got that date? That date again is October 18th. The topic is how to choose the right legal entities for your real estate. All right. Then did also want you guys to save the date. So this event, so most of the events that you saw in here, this is our virtual. We also try to get together once a year to bring the community. We're all spread across the Pacific between Hawaii, Japan, Korea. And so we just want a way for us to all come together. And this is the way that we do that. So if you mark the date, April 3rd and 4th, it'll be hosted here out of Guam. And so hope to see you there. This here is the program that we do. It's basically a 2-day event. If any of you have experienced a real estate investing conference, this is very different. And the reason why it's different is because we don't focus on bringing experts to stand on the stage and talk to you. We're very intentional about breaking things out into master classes and to give you options. So, it doesn't matter what state or season you're in your real estate investing journey. If you're someone just at interest level or someone who's highly seasoned, we try to bring topics that are kind of niche topics. And so that way you can literally pick and choose between our different rounds, which topics you want to partake in. And then we overlay that with cultural experiences. If you guys have never heard of Guam or been here, there are a lot of things that are unique to this island and the Chamorro culture that we want to be able to share with you. And so we kind of interweave that into the overall experience. And the key thing is that we really try to make it simple. As a mother and someone who is lived in Korea, Japan, and just know how hard it is to travel with kids, we try to remove all those pain points so that literally when you come, everything's packaged for you. All your meals are included, and transportation, and then of course the excursions. And so again, this is just to give you kind of a taste of what that would look like. And hopefully by the next event, we'll have everything lined up so that you guys can register for that. All right, and now I'm going to turn it over to Whitney to share how to stay in touch with us.
Great. Hey, everybody. If you want to go ahead and follow us, these are all our links. We're on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube. There's our email there. Our YouTube is where we go ahead and upload the recordings of all these events. So if you want to log in there, you can see all the previous events that we've done for like the past year we have got up there. And then this will be uploaded probably by about next week. So if you can give us a follow on there, you'll get alerted anytime we add new recordings to there. And yeah, hopefully you guys can find us and follow along.
Yep, for you guys to stay in touch. For anyone here who happens to be in any of these locations, as I shared with you, we're a volunteer community. And so everyone here with a virtual background, we're here because we just want to continue to add value and create ways for us to learn and grow. And if you happen to be in any one of these locations, feel free to reach out to anyone on the virtual background, or specifically myself, Wei, or Whitney, and we're happy to tell you more about what that means. And oh, actually, I see a QR code. That might be easier too. So feel free to hit that QR code to learn more. All right, well, this brings our event to a formal close. We'll go ahead and stop the recording, and then we'll open it back up to questions. And again, know that these questions, they could be anywhere. It could be for Erik, or if you have any other specific or any topics regarding real estate investing, we'll do that. So again, thank you guys for being here. It being a Saturday, I'm sure there are many other things you could be doing on your Saturday morning or Friday evening for those of you who are joining us stateside. So again, thank you and have a wonderful rest of your weekend.